Most men think that to understand a woman, you have to ask. Ask about her past. Ask about her ex. Ask about her pain. But the moment you ask, you lose something, her truth. Because words can lie. Stories can be edited. And masks can smile while hiding entire histories behind them. A woman's past isn't told through her answers. It's revealed through her silence, in the way she pauses before answering a simple question, in the way she reacts when you talk about loyalty, trust, or love. It's written in her tone, her habits, her laughter, hair distance. The untrained eye sees a woman. The aware man sees the story she's still living through. In this video, I'll show you how to read those stories without asking a single thing, how to uncover the emotional blueprint hidden beneath her words. Because when you stop listening to what she says and start watching what she does, you'll never be confused again. You'll see her past, her scars, her strength, everything without her saying a word. So listen carefully, brother, because after this, you'll never see women the same way again. Every man thinks he's being honest when he asks. He asks where she grew up. He asks about her ex. He asks how long she's been single. He asks because he thinks that's connection. But in reality, the moment you ask, she begins to edit, not out of malice, not because she's trying to deceive you, but because people don't tell the truth as it is. They tell the truth as they wish it had been. She'll soften the pain, polish the edges, remove the guilt, hide the cracks. She'll tell you the version of herself that's easiest to love. And that, brother, is the illusion of asking. You think you're learning who she is, but really, you're being introduced to who she wants you to see. When you ask a woman about her past, you trigger her defense mechanism, the same one she's been perfecting for years. Because every person learns how to curate their story for survival. She knows what details make her seem strong, and which ones make her seem broken. So, when you ask, you get the curated biography, not the raw truth. But here's the deeper truth. The moment you stop asking, you start seeing. Because what people hide in their words, they expose in their behavior. Watch her when she's not performing. Notice the small moments when she's quiet, when she laughs, when she deflects a compliment, when she changes the subject. That's where the truth lives. Her story isn't in her sentences, it's in her reactions. Stoicism teaches this ancient principle: the wise man learns more from silence than the fool learns from questions. To ask is easy. To observe is mastery. When you ask, you place her in control. When you observe, you reclaim it. Because questions invitent performance. But silence reveals pattern, and patterns never lie. Think about it. A man who constantly asks, "What happened?" is begging for context. A Stoic man doesn't need context, he reads character. Her tone when she disagrees with you, her patience when things don't go her way, her eyes when you mention the word trust. That's her past speaking. The irony is, this men who ask too much often lose attraction in her eyes. Why? Because curiosity, when rooted in insecurity, feels like inspection, and inspection feels like control. No woman wants to feel like a subject under investigation. She wants to feel seen, not studied. So when you ask less and observe more, you project calm power. You're saying, I don't need your story to understand you. I can already feel who you are. And that energy does something profound. It disarms her. It allows her real self to appear, because when she realizes you're not demanding explanations, she stops curating. Her walls lower. Her real voice emerge. That's when she'll start to reveal, not through words, but through essence. The way she touches her necklace when she's nervous. The way she stares at the floor when something reminds her of a memory she won't name. The way her energy changes when you mention loyalty or betrayal. All of that is her story hidden in plain sight. You don't need to pry open her past. It's already showing. You just have to be still enough to notice. The man who masters observation doesn't chase information. He reads between the lines. He's not trying to know her. He's learning her rhythm. And rhythm reveals truth long before words ever do. A woman's past isn't a secret to be unlocked. It's a pattern to be recognized. Every gesture, every pause, every inconsistency tells you something. And when you develop the awareness to see that, you gain an advantage few men ever reach. That's the Stoic way to watch without judgment, to understand without invading, to know without needing to control, because the man who constantly asks is saying, I don't trust what I see. But the man who observes silently says, I already know. So the next time you feel the urge to ask her about her past, don't. Watch her energy instead. Listen to the tone, not the tale. See how she responds to honesty, how she reacts to kindness, how she handles silence. That's where her truth lives, and it's louder than anything she could ever say. Remember this. Asking gives you her version. Observing gives you the truth. And truth is what separates the men who chase stories from the men who understand souls. If you want to know a woman's past, don't look at her answers. Look at how she reacts to attention. Not just yours, everyone's. The way she handles attention is one of the clearest windows into her emotional history, because attention is the currency of the modern world, and for many, it's also the bandage that covers old wounds. A woman who was once invisible will often crave to be seen. A woman who was once adored will often fear being overlooked. And a woman who was once betrayed will often test if you'll stay when the spotlight isn't on her. You don't need to interrogate her. You just need to observe how she responds when the world looks her way. When you compliment her, does she blush with quiet gratitude, or does she act like she's heard it 1,000 times before? Does she downplay her beauty, or does she amplify it every chance she gets? When she walks into a room, is she grounded? Or does she need the room to validate that she exists? These small reactions reveal more about her past than any confession ever could. Because how a woman receives attention tells you whether she's been nourished by it or starved of it. If she's constantly bringing up how many men message her, how people just can't stop looking, or how she's always the center of drama, it's not confidence you're hearing, it's hunger. It's the echo of years spent measuring her worth through the reflection of other people's eyes. A woman who grew up ignored, dismissed, or unloved learns to equate visibility with value. And when that happens, Attention becomes her oxygen. Even when she finds a man she genuinely likes, she'll still chase that oxygen elsewhere through likes, stares, compliments, small validations, because it's what keeps her emotional lungs filled. Not because she's disloyal, but because she's addicted. You can't heal that addiction for her, but you can recognize it. And recognition is your protection. When you see that pattern clearly, you stop confusing attention-seeking for affection. You stop falling for the illusion that her flirting means connection. You start understanding that sometimes what looks like confidence is really camouflage. Stoicism teaches us this. To understand desire, you must first understand lack. What she chases reveals what she once lacked. If she lights up when people notice her, it's not wrong, it's human. But if she needs that spotlight to stay calm, you're not meeting a healed woman, you're meeting her unhealed story. There's a difference between a woman who enjoys admiration and one who's dependent on it. The first has tasted validation and learned to live without it. The second has mistaken attention for love, and when you stop feeding it, she'll subconsciously interpret that as rejection. That's why so many men get blindsided. They think everything's going well, and then, suddenly, she drifts. Not because of something you did, but because your attention no longer gives her the high she's built her self-worth around. It's not betrayal, it's survival. She's doing what her past taught her to do, chase the next emotional hit before the silence gets too loud. So, what does a grounded man do? He doesn't judge her. He simply observes and adjusts. He doesn't compete with the noise of the world. He becomes the silence that makes her question why she ever needed it. When she starts telling stories about how every guy wants her, you don't get defensive. You get curious. Not about the men, but about the need behind the story. What part of her still hasn't learned that peace is more valuable than popularity when she posts constantly online, showing more than she reveals? It's not always vanity. Sometimes it's loneliness disguised as confidence. And you, the Stoic observer, understand the difference. You see the longing beneath the performance. A healed woman radiates without trying. She doesn't need to prove she's seen, because she's already seen herself. She doesn't need every man's approval, because she's at peace with her own reflection. That's the kind of woman you can build with, because her sense of self isn't rented from the world, it's owned. But when you sense that her confidence is conditional, that it wavers the moment attention shifts away from her, proceed with clarity, because the moment you make her your world, she'll start seeking another universe to orbit. Men often mistake chaos for chemistry. They confuse drama with desire. But what you're feeling isn't depth, it's emotional volatility. It's the pull of someone who's still trying to find herself in the eyes of others. Your task is not to rescue her. Your task is to stay centered enough to see what's really happening. That's what separates the grounded from the desperate. The grounded man doesn't chase attention, he commands presence. And because of that, he sees through illusions others fall for. So when you meet a woman who constantly needs to be seen, remember, you're not looking at her past, you're looking at the wound she learned to dress with attention. Don't shame it. Don't feed it. Simply understand it and decide whether you're willing to be patient with it, or wise enough to walk away from it. because one truth remains. You don't need to ask her about her past to see what shaped her. It's written in how she reacts when eyes are on her, and how she behaves when they're not. You can tell everything about a woman not by how she talks to you, but by how she talks about others. Most men never notice this. They get lost in her charm, her smile, the way she makes them feel seen. But if you really listen not to her words, but to her tone, you'll hear her emotional history unfold right in front of you. How she speaks about other women is a mirror. It reflects her peace or her pain. It shows whether she's healed or still fighting silent wars from the past. When she talks about another woman's success, does she sound inspired or irritated? When she compliments someone, is it genuine or does it come wrapped in subtle criticism? She's pretty, but she's confident, but it's a little much. She's lucky, not really talented. Every but is a wound speaking. You see, a woman who's at peace with herself doesn't compete. She celebrates. She's secure enough to admire beauty, grace, or strength in another without feeling diminished, because she knows who she is, and that knowledge cannot be threatened. But when a woman constantly attacks, mocks, or belittles others, it's not confidence you're seeing, it's camouflage. Her judgment is a projection. Her gossip is a defense mechanism. Women project what they haven't resolved. The one who calls others fake often learned that pretending was the only way to be accepted. The one who says most women can't be trusted was likely betrayed, maybe by a friend, maybe by her own reflection in the mirror of regret. And the one who says, "I just don't get along with other women," isn't independent, she's isolated. That statement doesn't come from strength. It comes from scars. Stoicism teaches us we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca: her imagination is where those battles still live. Every time she tears down another woman, she's fighting a ghost from her past, a rival who got more attention, a friend who betrayed her, a mother who compared her, a lover who left her for someone else. And you, as a man, need to listen with awareness, because when she speaks of others, she's showing you her emotional reflexes. Ask yourself, does her tone build, or does it break? Does she bring peace into the room, or tension? Is her voice calm when speaking of others, or sharpened by old jealousy she never healed from? These aren't trivial observations. They're warning signs or green lights. A woman who has made peace with other women has made peace with herself. That's the kind of woman who won't sabotage love when she feels insecure, who won't compare herself to your past, who won't compete with ghosts that no longer exist. But a woman who constantly tears others down, she'll eventually turn that same blade inward or toward you. Because judgment doesn't stay contained. It's a habit, and habits always find new targets. The man who lives by Stoic discipline doesn't judge her back. He observes. He watches quietly, without attachment, because observation is protection. The moment you recognize projection, you stop taking her reactions personally. You see the pattern for what it is: pain dressed as personality. Understand this. When she mocks others, she's revealing her inner dialogue. When she doubts others' loyalty, she's exposing her own fear of betrayal. And when she calls everyone else fake, she's really admitting how often she's had to hide her true self to survive. That's the tragedy behind cynicism. It's born from innocence that was once betrayed. So when you hear her speak, don't rush to judge. Just listen deeply. Is this a woman who's at war with the world, or one who's finally laid down her weapons? The Stoic man knows that every voice carries an echo of its past. When she speaks bitterly of others, that bitterness doesn't start with them, it starts with her own unhealed reflection. And here's the paradox. Sometimes, the most beautiful women carry the darkest narratives about others because they've spent years being compared, envied, or objectified. So they learn to defend through criticism. It's their armor. But armor that's worn too long becomes a cage. So don't just listen to what she says about others. Listen to what it says about her. Her peace is your clue. Her judgment is your warning. Because the way she talks about other women is exactly how she'll talk about you once you're no longer the exception, but part of the pattern. So be still. Be observant. Watch the energy behind the words, because her tone is truth even when her stories aren't. And the man who can read that truth is the man who never gets blindsided. If you want to know who a woman truly is, don't watch how she behaves when everything's going right. Watch how she reacts when things fall apart. Because conflict is the great revealer. It strips away charm, logic, and masks. It exposes the emotional blueprint built by every heartbreak, every betrayal, every unhealed wound she's ever carried. Most men panic when conflict appears. They try to fix it, calm it, or run from it. But the Stoic man doesn't do any of that. He observes. Because conflict isn't chaos, it's truth in motion. When something goes wrong, you forget a plan. She feels ignored. You say something that lands the wrong way. Pay attention not to her words, but to her patterns. Does she shut down, retreat into silence, and pretend nothing's wrong? Or does she explode, throwing accusations that don't match the moment? Does she try to understand, or does she rush to punish? Each of those reactions carries history. The woman who withdraws wasn't born distant. She was taught that expressing emotion leads to rejection. Maybe she grew up in a home where her feelings were dismissed. Maybe she loved a man who turned cold every time she opened her heart. So now, she protects herself through silence, not because she doesn't care, but because she's terrified that speaking up will make her lose the connection altogether. On the other hand, the woman who lashes out, who meets discomfort with fire instead of calm, wasn't born angry. She was conditioned to believe that the only way to be heard is to be loud. That vulnerability is weakness. That if she doesn't go on the attack first, she'll be the one who gets hurt. Either way, you're not just dealing with her, you're dealing with her training. You're meeting the ghosts of every moment she had to choose survival over softness. That's why Stoicism isn't about judging her reactions, it's about understanding where they come from. So you don't get dragged into the emotional storm she didn't create alone. Because when you react to her reaction, you lose your grounding. You become part of her past instead of her present. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When another blames you or hates you, go to their soul, enter into their minds, and see what kind of men they are." you will find that there is no reason to be in such agitation. The Stoic man applies this in relationships. He doesn't see anger, he sees fear. He doesn't see coldness, he sees protection. He doesn't see manipulation, he sees history trying to repeat itself. And that awareness changes everything. When she withdraws, he doesn't chase. He gives her space not as punishment, but as respect. When she lashes out, he doesn't raise his voice, he raises his presence. When she tests his patience, he stays calm because he knows that the man who can't control his emotions can't control his life. Conflict is where polarity is tested. It's where attraction either deepens or dies. And most men kill it without realizing, not because they're wrong, but because they mirror her chaos instead of anchoring her through it. You see, every woman wants to feel emotionally safe, but safe doesn't mean soft words or perfect behavior. It means knowing that even when she storms, you don't crumble, that even when she withdraws, you don't chase, that your peace is not up for negotiation. Because when your calm remains, her nervous system starts to recalibrate. It begins to learn subconsciously that not every disagreement leads to abandonment, that not every silence means rejection, that not every argument ends in chaos. That's how healing begins. Not through long talks, but through presence. Not through promises, but through consistency. But here's the hard truth. Sometimes you'll meet a woman who isn't ready to heal because conflict is her comfort zone. She doesn't want peace. She wants proof. Proof that you'll stay. Proof that you'll fight. Proof that she still matters. And she'll push you until you react, because that reaction confirms her belief that love always turns volatile. You can't fix that. You can only refuse to repeat the pattern. The Stoic man doesn't engage in emotional warfare. He refuses to be pulled into the battlefield of her past. Instead, he holds the frame steady, aware, unshaken, not cold, not detached, just immovable in his peace. Because real strength isn't about dominance, it's about discipline. And in conflict, discipline is the difference between love that grows and love that self-destructs. So when things go wrong, when voices rise, when tension builds, when the air gets heavy, breathe. Observe. Don't try to win. Don't try to prove. Just understand. Because how she fights tells you what she's still fighting inside. And how you respond tells her whether you're the man who repeats her past or the one who finally ends it. If you really want to know a woman's past, don't start by asking about her exes. Listen to how she talks about men as a whole. Because every woman carries not just memories of individuals, but narratives about the entire masculine, and those narratives are forged in the fire of her experiences. When she says, "Men are liars," that's not a joke, that's a scar. When she laughs and says, "All men cheat," that's not humor, that's history. And when she shrugs, "You can't trust men," that's not philosophy. That's pain speaking through her mouth. You see, her words about men are not casual. They are memory echoes. They are trust trauma that never got fully healed. And unless you pay attention, you'll mistake those echoes for personality, when in reality, they are warnings from her past. The tone tells the story. Pay attention not only to the words, but to the tone. Does she sound playful, detached, bitter? Bitterness is never born in the present. It's always residue from the past. If she consistently talks about men with sarcasm, anger, or cynicism, she's revealing more about what was done to her than who she truly is. Because people don't generalize without cause. They generalize when wounds run so deep that every face blurs into the same mask. A woman who was abandoned might project that fear onto every man she meets. A woman who was cheated on may see infidelity as inevitable. A woman who was manipulated may assume every gesture of kindness hides an agenda. And here's the truth: you're not fighting against her opinion. You're standing in front of her ghosts. The difference between distrust and discernment. Not every negative view of men is toxic. Sometimes it's discernment, wisdom forged in fire. The woman who says, "Men must be consistent," isn't bitter. She's experienced. The one who says, "I can't stand liars," isn't cynical. She's setting a standard. But when you hear sweeping statements like, "Men can't be trusted," "Men always leave," "Men only want one thing," you're no longer dealing with standards. You're facing stored trauma. And here's the problem: when trauma becomes the lens, even genuine love will look like a trick. No matter what you do, she'll search for the flaw. No matter how consistent you are, she'll anticipate betrayal. Her nervous system isn't calibrated for safety, it's calibrated for survival. Why this matters for you? Many men ignore this. They think, if I just prove myself, she'll see I'm different. But trauma doesn't respond to logic. It responds to pattern recognition. And when her body recognizes man, it also recognizes every wound that came with that word. So understand, you cannot outlove her scars. You cannot convince her out of her ghosts. You can only observe whether she's healing them or still feeding them. Because if she's not aware of her beliefs about men, those beliefs will dictate how she treats you. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but automatically. The same way old programming runs in the background of a computer, her trust trauma will run in the background of your connection. The Stoic perspective, Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth," by which no one was ever truly harmed. This is how the Stoic man listens to a woman's beliefs about men. Not to argue, not to defend his gender, but to hear whether she's open to truth or closed off by pain. If she holds her beliefs loosely, she can grow. If she clings to them like armor, she's not ready. Because beliefs are either doors or walls, and you need to know which you're walking into. Your role as a man. Your role isn't to fix her. It isn't to convince her that not all men are like that. Your role is to see clearly. To ask yourself, am I stepping into a partnership or into someone else's battlefield? Because if she still sees all men as enemies, eventually you'll become one too. Not because of who you are, but because of what her past has trained her to expect. The Stoic man doesn't fight illusions. He lives in truth. And the truth is this: her beliefs about men are never just words. They're the map of her emotional history. And that map will determine where your journey together leads. When she jokes about men, listen carefully. When she generalizes, don't dismiss it. Every sentence carries a memory. Every tone carries a wound. And your task isn't to argue with it, it's to recognize it. Because once you see her beliefs clearly, you stop being surprised by her reactions. You understand that her view of men is the mirror of her past. And a man who understands the past never gets trapped by it. If you really want to know how a woman will love you, don't just look at how she treats you today. Look at how she talks about where she came from. Because here's the truth. The family we grow up in is the blueprint. It's the operating system that runs quietly in the background of every relationship we ever enter. And unless someone has consciously rewritten that code, they'll repeat it again and again. The father effect. The way she speaks about her father is often the way she'll love you. If her father was nurturing, present, protective, you'll see that stability show up in her trust. She'll expect consistency because she knows it exists. She'll trust easily because she has felt safety before. She'll forgive quickly because she grew up knowing that love survives mistakes. But if her father was absent, unpredictable, or conditional with his affection, her love will often mirror that chaos. She may crave constant reassurance because she never got it as a child. She may expect abandonment because she's lived through it already. Or she may push you away the moment she cares because closeness always meant pain. This isn't about judging her. It's about recognizing that every daddy issue stereotype has a deeper truth. Our first model of masculinity becomes the lens through which we see all men, the mother effect. Don't ignore how she talks about her mother. That relationship often shapes how she bonds emotionally, how she nurtures, and how she expects to be nurtured. If her mother was critical, she may never feel good enough. If her mother was overprotective, she may struggle to stand on her own. If her mother was distant, she may long for closeness, but not know how to ask for it. The way she describes her mom in casual conversation, a laugh, a sigh, a bitter edge in her tone, all of it tells you more than direct stories ever could. Because when people talk about family, they reveal not just history, but the emotional language they learned at home, patterns that repeat. Here's the harsh truth most men ignore. Unhealed patterns at home always repeat in love. The woman who had to earn love from her father will unconsciously make you earn it too. The woman who was betrayed by a parent's inconsistency will brace for you to fail her. The woman who saw constant conflict may pick fights even when there's nothing wrong because her nervous system doesn't know how to feel safe without chaos. And here's the most dangerous part. These patterns are not always conscious. She may not even realize she's repeating them, but her body remembers, her tone remembers, her silence remembers. Observation over interrogation. You don't need to ask, "What was your childhood like?" She'll show you. Listen to how she talks about holidays, how she remembers birthdays, whether she lights up at the idea of family time or rolls her eyes. Those casual moments are emotional fingerprints. If she glows when she talks about Sunday dinners, she likely grew up with structure and warmth. If she dismisses family traditions as pointless, she may have grown up in neglect or chaos. If she changes the subject every time family comes up, that silence is its own story. You're not prying, You're observing. And the man who observes sees what questions could never reveal. Why this matters for you? Because the family blueprint becomes the relationship blueprint. If she never received unconditional love, she may not know how to give it. If she never saw healthy conflict resolution, she may assume fighting means the end. If she never felt truly seen at home, she may test you endlessly to make sure you see her now. This doesn't mean she's unworthy of love. It means you need to know what you're stepping into. Are you walking into a partnership with someone who has rewritten her code, or are you stepping into a rerun of her childhood? The Stoic perspective. The Stoics taught us that history repeats itself unless we consciously break the cycle. Seneca once wrote, "What is unhealed at home repeats itself in love." The Stoic man doesn't ignore family patterns. He doesn't take them personally. He studies them because he knows, if you want to see your future with her, look at her past with them. Every woman brings her family with her into a relationship, not literally, but emotionally. Her father is there in her expectations. Her mother is there in her tone. Her childhood is there in her fears, her triggers, her needs. You can't erase that blueprint, but you can recognize it. And once you recognize it, you gain power, not to control her, but to decide for yourself. Do I want to walk this path? Do I want to love within this story? Or is this a cycle I refuse to repeat? Because a man who sees the blueprint clearly never gets blindsided by the house that's built on top of it. A woman can curate her words. She can edit her stories. She can even wear confidence like armor. But there's one thing she can never fully control: her emotional footprints. Those invisible traces left behind by the past. The way she flinches at a raised voice. The way her eyes darken when abandonment is mentioned. The way she shuts down when something hits too close to home. These are not accidents. They are echoes, signals, proof that the past never dies. It just shows up in new ways, in new moments, with new people. And if you know how to read them, you'll see the parts of her story she could never put into words. The things that stir her watch, what makes her emotional. Not the obvious things, but the ones that catch her off guard. Maybe it's a song about betrayal that she skips every time. Maybe it's a scene in a movie where a father walks away. Maybe it's something small, like not being invited to a group dinner that makes her unreasonably upset. These aren't random reactions. They're triggers tied to memory. They tell you what hurt once, what still hurts, and what she's never fully healed. A woman who overreacts to being left out. Maybe she grew up feeling invisible. A woman who crumbles at criticism. Maybe she was raised in an environment where nothing was ever good enough. A woman who tenses at raised voices. Maybe yelling once meant danger. Every emotional reaction is a breadcrumb leading you back to a wound she didn't choose, but still carries. The things that don't move her. Just as revealing as what makes her emotional is what doesn't. If she seems cold when others cry, if she dismisses pain as weakness, if she shrugs off betrayal like it means nothing, that's not strength. That's numbness. A defense mechanism, though rehearsed. It feels like personality. But numbness is a footprint too. It tells you she's been hurt so deeply that she had to shut down just to survive. It means she built armor too early, and now she doesn't know how to take it off. And here's the brutal truth. A woman who cannot be moved by her own emotions cannot truly be moved by yours. The mirror of overreaction. Here's something most men miss when she overreacts. She's not reacting to you. She's reacting to everyone who came before you. The late reply that sets her off, that's not about your text. It's about every time she was ignored by someone who mattered. The suspicion when you're quiet, that's not about this moment. It's about the silence that once broke her. Overreaction is memory in disguise. It's the past replaying itself in the present. And if you take it personally, you'll miss the lesson. She's showing you her wound without realizing it. Why observation beats interrogation. You don't need to ask her, what makes you emotional? Because the answer is already written in her reactions. The sigh she doesn't explain, the subject she avoids, the tears she hides when she thinks you're not looking. That's her past bleeding through the cracks. And the man who notices, he sees more than the man who asks, because words can lie, but reactions always tell the truth. The Stoic lens. The Stoics taught that life itself is feedback, that everything we encounter is a chance to observe, to learn, to strengthen. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. When you witness her emotional footprints, don't react with judgment or pity. Respond with clarity. See them for what they are: signals, not verdicts. They reveal where she's been, but they don't have to dictate where you go. The disciplined man doesn't get lost in her storm. He notices the pattern, understands the past behind it, and then asks himself the only question that matters. Am I prepared to walk beside someone carrying this weight? Her emotional footprints are the map she didn't mean to give you. The unspoken story, the raw data of her soul. And while most men chase her words, you, if you're paying attention, already know the truth. She can't hide, because a woman's past doesn't live in the stories she tells. It lives in the moments she doesn't mean to show. And when you learn to read those moments, you don't just know her history, you see her completely. That's the difference between the man who's blind and the man who can never be fooled. So here's the truth.